RWBY Volume 4, World of Remnant, Episode 6, Faunus. Now this episode I was excited to watch, despite the fact that it was Thanksgiving weekend, so of course, the Rooster Teeth team kind of went on a break and we went back to a World of Remnant episode right after coming off of the break last week. I was still excited to see this one because it was Faunus. That's been my number 2 thing for a very long time. Like, my number 1 is still the semblances because I still want to know everything I can about exactly how that works. Just because it's just so varied, like just how did all that stuff start. But this has definitely always been my number 2, and it was really cool. We got some interesting stuff, of course, about Faunus in general, but they also had an interesting little bit about the Great War. We find out that it wasn't like a world war where everyone was fighting everyone. We find out that there actually were allies between the kingdoms. It was actually 2 kingdoms versus 2 kingdoms. And I thought that was cool because that's something that they never really talked about. It was just like the Great War happened. These, they constantly mention like they were involved, but I just assumed it was everyone because it was the Great War. But it was actually everyone, but there were only 2 sides. There weren't 4 sides in this crazy war. So I thought that was actually interesting, and I feel like that might come up in future episodes. I feel like that's something that could still have a lasting impact, even though it's been, it's an undisclosed amount of time, but I would assume it's been like hundreds of years. So that I think could be really cool if there's still people. It's like, our family hates this family from this kingdom because because of the Great War. So there could be, certain biases and stuff based on which kingdom you're from and which kingdom you go to, simply because of the Great War. Even though that was such a long time ago, it's still there. So I thought that was really cool. They talked a bit more about the different types of Faunus, and they mentioned specifically Pro talking about like the reptilian Faunus, which I thought was really cool, and like how it grew back its tail, and how that's super realistic to reptiles in real life. Like, they have like basically like the greatest healing factor, at least that I know of like pretty much every species. Like, you can chop off their fingers and stuff, or I guess toes, and they'll grow them back. Like a lizard, if you chop it and go on its tail off, it'll completely regrow. Like, it just will all the time. So I thought that was cool, and it's like I hope that we're getting all these references to like different types, because we're gonna get to see more, because we don't really get to see different types of Faunus. We get, we have like our Blake-like Faunus where it's like, oh, they have ears or they have horns, and then the one Faunus, or technically we've only seen 2. We've seen 2 Faunus that have tails, and that is Neon and Sun. And Neon sadly hasn't shown up. I would love to see her again, her and Flint. But we have those 2. Those are the only 2 Faunus that we've actually seen with tails, and they're oddly very similar. And I made this connection back when she first showed up. I was like, so far the only 2 people with tails both use nunchucks. I thought that was really weird. I was like, I don't know if that's a thing they're going to be doing, but I just thought that was an interesting little connection. But I was excited. I was like, okay, they're talking about 2 Faunus being together and how they both make wolf cubs. If you have a human and a wolf Faunus, they would most likely make a wolf cub as well. But if you have a wolf Faunus and like a ram's horn Faunus, who knows what's going to happen there. But the main thing I picked up is like, alright, they had like the pictures of the wolf Faunus where they had really big fluffy tails, and they had the lizard Faunus with the really long tail. So I'm like, I hope we get to see that stuff, because so far it's just been like, like a monkey's tail really thin, or like a cat's tail is really thin. So I would love to see, different types of Faunus. Maybe we'll get to see some really extreme stuff if they go, with like birds and things like that. And they didn't really touch too much on people who, like Crow and Raven, who can actually turn into animals. Like, so it's still hard to say whether or not that's a part of their semblance, or if that's Faunus related, or how that plays out. So it's it's still kind of up in the air at this point. So they don't speak too much on that. But I still thought it was really cool, because I thought that's what they were going to go to when they did the human Faunus thing. It was like, in those cases, you can have someone who can actually flat out transform. That's where I thought they were going, and then it was just like, nope, you just, most likely, you'll get like, a little wolf cub. So I was like, oh, okay, that's not where I thought it was going. So it still leaves that up in the air. But I thought it was cool, as always, nice little snippet of the world. But it was fun, and they threw a lot of stuff in there, I'm assuming, mostly based off of how they did the last World of Remnant episode, and then the last main episode. Those 2 episodes really tied in together. It was like they had Crow go to the inn. They had all the information about the village and the bandits and stuff like that in the World of Remnant episode. And then it's like, hey, here are all these answers from Raven about that village that was destroyed and how she's involved with said bandits. I was like, okay. So because of the way that all played out, I'm hoping that this next episode focuses a lot on the Faunus, and we still of course have Blake and Sun on their journey. So I don't know if it's going to get to the point where it's like, hey, we made it to Menagerie, in the next episode. But it seems like it's, based on how they did the connection between the last main episode and the World of Remnant one. It seems like some part of this next episode, hopefully, will have a big part, about the Faunus and either the history of the Faunus or just, the Faunus characters, within the series. Maybe we'll see some more characters get introduced. Like I said, maybe we'll get to see some newer versions. We'll get to see the realized 3D version of, like a reptilian Faunus or something like that. So I'm not sure, but I'm hoping that it does connect like the last episode did, because I think that'd be really cool. I love the Faunus, and outside of just seeing our main Faunus characters, we really don't get a lot out of them. So I would love to see that. I'm still hoping that we get to Menagerie super, super fast. And also they made the big reference, like, you throw all these people in who are kind of like-minded and stuff, and they start to come together real fast, and then it ends on the White Fang, and I was like, okay, that's a clear hint that things are going to get even darker, which, I guess it's not that hard to see. I mean, things have just gone mad, but there's still a bit of hope. It's like, we can still hope and go to the next village and do this and do that, so there's still hope out there. But I like the way they did this episode, and hopefully it does have a huge tie-in with the next one, because I love learning about the Faunus and seeing them and stuff like that. I hate that he's doing the law right now, because my camera loves to just pick up all the audio, and this window is like a piece of paper. It's so loud, it's crazy. But I enjoyed this episode. I am very excited for this next one. I am curious how this is going to, change things as far as the typical episode structure, because normally, we have like, here's 3 episodes, World of Remnant, and then 3 episodes. But because we had the break, are we going to get 4 episodes in a row, and then, another World of Remnant a little bit later than expected? So maybe the next episode that ties into, the next World of Remnant will actually show up before the World of Remnant episode comes out. So maybe they'll do that. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll still stick with that structure or something. I don't know. But it's still a fun episode. I'm, of course, excited to get back to the main series as usual, but I really enjoyed this one. As always, I'm still just waiting for the semblance thing. I just want all those answers. It's kind of like the dust thing from Volume 2. It was like, alright, that was one of the biggest ones that I was waiting for. Like, what the heck is dust? How exactly does it work? So, that was one of them. This was another one, and semblance is still like my #1 thing. Does everyone have a semblance? Even if you don't train to fight, is it something that you kind of develop? Is it just automatic? That sort of thing. So, I am curious, about the semblances still. But overall, definitely a fun episode, of course. We'd love to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And typically I always ask what you guys want to see next, from the World of Remnant episodes. But I want to know what your favorite bit of information was from this episode, because like I said, they put some pretty interesting things in there. The stuff about the Great War I thought was pretty good. My favorite thing was probably the fact that they don't really know how Faunus DNA works, as far as 2 different types of Faunus being together, and they could just have a random kid. Like, the way they made it seem, it wasn't just, oh, the kid could come out as either a wolf cub or, have like ram's horns. It was just a flat out question mark. It was like, who knows what you're gonna get? So that was probably the most interesting thing to me, where it's like, you could be a monkey and you could be a cat, and then your kid will come out as like a dragon or something crazy. And I was like, that just seems interesting to me. Like, there's a really deep layer to that, where it's just like, science has no idea. We don't know why that happens, but 2 Faunus can make a totally different type of Faunus. Or, it might be something that already exists, but it won't be either of them. It'll be like it's basically like recessive genes, that sort of thing. So I just thought that was really cool. But like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.